Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Wrestling News Weekly. I am, of course, Nick McDaniel, and as always, I'm joined by Belinda Myron.
Yes, so good to be back today at the Tapped Out Studios East, home of the Tapped Out Hall of Fame, as I'm slowly building it up here on the wall. I've seen people that watch my video interviews. You've got to see some of the clips from the famous Wall of Fame I'm building here. How y'all folks doing today?
Well, man, we're doing good, man.
Yes, that's right, man. You're the best, man.
Well, I'm going to throw a teaser out, and everybody's going to have to wait all the way to the end of the show before I share the final information. Technically, this is going to be the final Wrestling News Weekly. Technically.
Because we ain't going to stop.
Wait till the very end of the podcast. Make sure you listen. The details will follow through, and you'll understand what we mean by that. So, doesn't mean we're going anywhere, but pay attention to the details. That's always important.
Nomenclature. Things change. We're always on the cutting edge, so sometimes things change, guys.
Well, speaking of cutting edge, things changing, women's wrestling has come a long way since we were first wrestling fans as kids.
Yeah.
I'm very proud to say that is the case, considering I'm a father of three kids, three daughters. It does the heart good, don't you think?
I think it's a really big deal that if things are going, because if as wrestling goes, there goes the world, to me, wrestling is a moral barometer for the rest of the world. If it can get over with the people who like wrestling, I think it can get over with anyone in the country.
So, exactly. And where we are with that is real simple. Sunday, October 28th, Nassau Coliseum, Long Island, New York. The WWE has their big announcement at the big opening of Raw. We don't dig very deep into Raw and SmackDown anymore. We kind of let our buddies over at the Gorilla Press handle all that.
Yeah.
But this was just a big story that had to be covered. They make the announcement that, like I said, October 28th, it will be the first ever all-women's pay-per-view in the WWE.
I think it's great.
It's evolution, baby.
I think it's great.
No pun intended, right? It's evolution.
Yeah. That's the perfect name for it, albeit the weird faction with, Ric Flair and Batista. But
I'm excited, man. I mean, there's going to be, they're talking about 50 women being involved from the past, the present. They're talking current stars.
That's a lot of women. I mean, do they have that many stars?
I don't necessarily think we're talking 50 women competing. I think they're just going to be there. They're going to probably do something, unless we're going to get another battle royal of some kind, which I hope they don't do.
What about Mickie James challenging Trish? I
saw that. That was actually on my notes to bring up. Yes. That, it's like one more time, 3 babies later, and they're still, I would be game for it, because on an all-women's pay-per-view, let's be blunt, when we have a WrestleMania, there's always a nostalgia match. When you have big pay-per-view, it happens. And Trish Stratus and Mickie James, I mean, given whatever it might be, I'll take that. I mean, now Lita, involved. Give me a triple threat with Lita, Trish, and Mickie one more time.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue about that.
Not
going to argue about that.
Well, and that's total. Again, I'm not saying Mickey's nostalgia because she's still going, and I'm not saying the other two still can't go, but that would be your nostalgia match for the card. When they're already talking, we're going to see the finals of the Mae Young Classic and 4 other title matches. You're going to get the Raw, SmackDown, and NXT women defending their belts. And, of course, everybody's like, well, what the hell's the 4th one? The NXT UK belt will finally, at that point, be crowned.
That's going to mean some pretty big deal for some people we know, people we've met at shows. I wouldn't say we know them, but, I mean, we've met Isla Dawn at AWE shows. She's been on the English program, the last one they had. Killer Kelly, Isla Dawn, and there was a 3-way. I can't remember who the other woman was. But I saw this phenomenal women's match, and it's on the network, and it's somebody we've watched wrestle up close at a couple of AW shows, especially their Roar show. She's phenomenal, and that's somebody that's getting on programming that we're going to see bigger. So that would be great, man. If that's going to be something you're going to get to see on the regular shows, awesome.
Other topic came up, by the way, in an interview post this. Stephanie McMahon was asked about those tag titles that we had kept hearing the rumors of flying around that's what she was going to announce. She said, it's obviously it didn't come to fruition on Raw. That was it was the pay-per-view was the big announcement. But she did say it's something they are keen on, implementing at some point in time. That rumor of, them tag belts and it being defended across all brands.
I think that's pretty cool.
But me and you've been on page. I mean, we've been on page. Now, I don't know about NXT, but like the NXT stuff should be defended across all brands, maybe. NXT UK, blah, 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 blah. But Raw and SmackDown, we've both been proponents of they should have one tag team champion, one set of tag team champions, one, Yeah,
I just think you get better storylines when you don't just have a stack of belts,
Right. There's way too many belts. We've had that conversation. Exactly.
Maybe have 2 mid-card belts, one big belt, and one tag belt, and then one like USA tag belt.
Well, even back in the day.
You've got to tier it.
Well, even back in the day, they had a TV champion and then they had a U.S. champion or something, and now WWE did not. They always had basically Intercontinental champion, World champion, and tag champions. But down in our, neck of the woods, we always had like the United States champion or the national, depending your age range. And then, of course, the World TV champion. So that kind of makes sense to have 2 mid-card belts, but 1 world champion, 2 mid-cards at best, and then 1 set of tag champions. I'm that old school as well. So, but definitely it's cool that, it sounds like we know the inevitable is coming, that there will be women's tag champions. So with getting their own pay-per-view, getting, all the stuff, they're getting all these opportunities. It's a cool thing. But one of the things that did come up, by the way, should Steph wrestle?
Stephanie McMahon?
Yeah.
No.
That's a draw.
No. She's an attraction. She's a WrestleMania match. She is not something you want to see at every show. She does not need to be on the women's special pay-per-view, even though she helped a lot with it. It would not be here without her, but they don't need that heat. That'd be like bringing Shane back for a random pay-per-view. No, they're WrestleMania acts. Don't bring them in unless you got that big draw. And I don't think it's the right thing to do to bring her in to wrestle.
I'm in 100% agreement. I think that moment would be one of the, now I'm not saying they won't, but is Stephanie McMahon wrestling is definitely something that I feel like, I don't want to say that would seem to me, and I know it's not this, but it would seem to me that it'd be Stephanie trying to be involved in the novel, I don't say novelty, maybe novelty is the word, but the unique, this is the first one. It's a big deal. So let her stay out of it. Let all of those women have that moment.
Unfortunately, though, McMahon tend to insert themselves.
That is true.
Into things.
Does happen, and we hope it doesn't. But that's super proud again. Like I said, us having daughters, it's really cool to see an all women's pay per view in the WWE. Yes. And everybody's like, well, there's all women's cards all over the country. And obviously, we are big, huge indie fans. We go to shows.
We sponsored an indie show here.
We sponsored an all women's show. Absolutely. So we're just trying to say, to reach this level with such a big company, with the mass amounts of people that are going to see it, it's a very, very cool thing. And I think
you saw that people want women's wrestling more. In Monroe, Georgia, it turned out to be one of the bigger shows of the year. It's not top 5, but they sold the hell out of some tickets for that show, man. A great attendance for a show. The night before their big yearly show. People like women's wrestling. It's interesting. It's passionate. It's violent. I love it. I think more people, the more they see of it, the more they'll buy into it, man.
Well,
it's great.
Let's talk about, because, we try not to dive all into the Raw and everything, but of course, last night, night before, curtain breaker, a little bit behind the scenes, right? Monday night on Raw, Roman beats Bobby Lashley, so we are going to see Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns again at SummerSlam, and the backlash has already started. What's your thoughts, man? I mean,
I don't care. That's the way I've gotten about this kind of stuff. I like Brock, and I'll probably watch it because of Brock, because you never know when Brock, for lack of a better way to put it, is gonna like cut up and bust him open. Now, he's not going on his own or going into business for himself the way people act like he is when he breaks somebody open. It's all planned, but you get the feeling when you're watching a Brock match, you never know when that man could lose his mind and get pissed off and just decide to break somebody in half. So I like it. If I have to watch Roman wrestle anybody, it might as well be him. You're gonna get it anyway. Okay? You might as well throw some lube on it because it's coming.
Well, I mean, it's the people that are, I get people saying that they're tired of Roman. They're not getting the Roman they want. They want him as a heel, blah, blah, blah. Well, first of all, we may.
A heel! Sorry.
That's all right. But, I mean, we may get him. You never know. We don't know what's going to happen at SummerSlam. Roman can wrestle. We've had this argument a million times. Everybody, the match, to be blunt with you, I thought the match with Lashley was very good.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I love
both
I
of
actually
them.
Like to watch him wrestle. I think he's a phenomenal wrestler. And I might be biting onto the smark a little bit, but I'm just not as interesting in Roman as a performer. He's a great wrestler, but the character doesn't get me, and that's my fault. That's my barrier to Roman Reigns.
He doesn't do it for you. We've had this conversation all the time. Yeah. It's okay that if it's not your cup of tea, right? It just happens.
I don't dislike Roman. He's just not for me. I think he's a phenomenal wrestler. I think Kenny Omega's a phenomenal wrestler. Do I go out and search down Kenny Omega matches? No, I don't. Do they put Kenny Omega on the pay-per-views I watch all the time and the program I see every Monday, Tuesday, and every third Sunday? No. So I don't run into him that much.
Right.
It's different.
But so I'm going to ask you just real quick while we're on the subject. Is it Roman's time? Do we get a cash in, at SummerSlam? What do you think?
Oh, we're going to get a cash in. If you do not see Braun.
But hold on, let me backpedal you out of this now. Now that we know that Braun Strowman's going to be wrestling Kevin Owens for the Money in the Bank at SummerSlam earlier in the night, is Braun Strowman going to get, screwed out of the case and does Kevin Owens cash in and become, I'm not saying I want it, but you know what would happen?
What would happen?
The smarts would love it. Ugh. And guess what? Now, hold on now. Better than everything. You get it, and then you get all this heat. Somehow Kevin Owens pins Roman in a cash in the middle of a match. Kevin Owens is your new champion. Your smarts are happy that Roman doesn't get it, but now you've got the belt on somebody that's, and I with all due respect, he's very beatable.
Yes, the belt should be. I like the thing with the belt being on somebody who's a champion, an unsurmountable obstacle, the Great Wall of China. The man you never think you can beat, because that makes for more drama. Yeah.
And we said this last week, by the way. For the record, I'm going on record, and I've said Brock Lesnar needs to tap or be pinned to lose that belt. We don't want another, and no knock on it. It was a real cool moment at WrestleMania, the way Seth Rollins captured his years ago, a couple years ago. But Brock Lesnar needs to be pinned or tapped to take this belt off of him. So whoever does it gets to take all this momentum they built with Brock and they move it on somebody. My personal opinion, love it, hate it. That's why it needs to be Roman, because we know that's where they're going in the future. It was him or Braun. Braun doesn't strike me as a cash-in guy.
You think Braun's going to want to walk around with the belt forever? I mean, sorry, the case forever. And just,
No. What I mean by that is I think Braun's the kind of guy that will walk out there and go, I want a match. Hand the briefcase and says, I want a match to their face. He doesn't strike me as I'm going to wander down to the ring and cash in when, like, I could see Braun Strowman at SummerSlam before the match ever starts, walks out there and goes, this is a triple threat now, I'm in.
And then wrestle his match and wrestle in the triple threat?
Yeah.
But that's not the triple threat I really want to see at that show. I would like to see Bob stuck in that match.
Bobby Lashley.
Bobby Lashley, I think he has earned the right to be in the triple threat. He beat Roman, and now Roman beat him. It's a different deal,
Well, that's a popular opinion, man. I mean, I go ahead and tell you. I mean, even, Brian Cage from Impact Wrestling has come out on record and said he thinks the fans want to see Bobby Lashley, not Roman, versus Brock. And that's kind of, but by the way, Brian Cage is your new X Division champion. That was pretty cool. He won the title at Impact Wrestling Slammiversary this past weekend. Did you see that show by chance yet? Or
I did not see the show because what was it, like $50? And I love Impact. Every time I watch Impact, it gets better. But $50 is $50. But
man. You need to get on that. You need to get on that the Global Wrestling Network that that they do.
You don't get the pay-per-views on that.
Yeah, but you get them at a reduced rate. So I mean, still. So come on.
This is where I got to argue for the WWE.
No. But look, it's a totally
14 or 15 pay-per-views a year for $10 a month.
I get what you're saying.
Plus the network. They don't have enough content to justify me giving them $10 a month for a discount on their pay-per-views. Their pay-per-views need to be free. I would be in it 100% if their pay-per-views are free. Pay-per-views and network on there. You don't have enough to attract me to the network.
Well,
right now.
check it out. There's also, I know it's on the Fight app, but there's less pay-per-views a year, blah, 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 blah. But anyway, what I really was trying to get to is it was a great show. I mean, they've got a solid momentum going.
No, I'm sure it was a great show, and everybody says it was a great show.
Oh yeah, we had a lot of the feedback was positive. Everybody's talking about, man, this could be one of the best pay-per-views of the year. It was solid from top to bottom. And then I'm going to kind of let everybody know, this is kind of a window I wanted to segue in. We are not going to break down the pay-per-view because I've officially lifted the suspension of Lewis. He's going to be, he will be back. The Pro Wrestling Personified is going to return. Everybody saw that we put the preview for Slammiversary out. It will be available. If you head over to the Pro Wrestling Personified podcast Patreon page, go to Patreon and then, like I said, Pro Wrestling Personified podcast, and there'll be a link on Twitter and Facebook, I'm sure, that you'll be able to check he actually has a review up, and that will be just on the Patreon page only. So definitely go over there and check. And there's going to be more of that stuff coming, which we'll talk about later in the show. So check it out.
I'm not sold on bringing him back. I mean, after some of the stuff he pulled last time, I'm hoping this works out because Lewis is good for the network. But him and that Jim McDougal fellow better watch themselves.
Yeah. Well, we're bringing him back. It was a decision that I made. I've talked to him. He seems very, very, apologetic, and hopefully everything will be fine. So going forward, definitely check out the Pro Wrestling Personified podcast, and especially over at the Patreon page if you want to keep that Slammiversary review.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of Impact, and that's something very interesting that came out this week, it's a two-phase thing I want to talk about, is one, Mr. Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho on Twitter was asked, would he ever consider Impact Wrestling, with his music career and everything he's got going on, would he consider it? And he was like, of course I would. I also wanted to kind of address the other one, and I want to come back to this one, because they asked him about, was he going to be at the Ring of Honor New Japan show in Madison Square Garden? His response was, maybe. Maybe that's what we get, is we get Chris Jericho there, but he's got to be the champion in April for that to happen. Because that show was like April 6th. Now, back to Impact Wrestling. Their schedule fits what he's trying to do on the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, it does, but he's a Vince guy.
He's a Vince guy, but he's also a Scott, and he's also, a Cyrus guy. Those guys that are his friends that are running that company. I mean, think about it. But it's so conducive, because if he comes back, Vince is going to want him on TV every week, and he basically, when he goes back to the WWE, he essentially, his music goes on hiatus. It's when they're taking breaks from touring and whatever. With Impact, I mean, he would be able to go to TV tapings, knock those out in a couple of days. They do 4 pay-per-views a year, maybe, if that. I mean, so you schedule around that, dude. That's not that hard. Even if the money isn't what he makes with WWE, it still fits his, Fozzy schedule a whole lot better, in my opinion. I would love to see it.
He's not going to leave Vince to appear on this show. I depend on TNA. Now listen for a second.
Okay.
Because Vince has all the money in the world. Okay? I know Sinclair Broadcasting has more money than WWE, but they're not going to put it into Ring of Honor like that. Okay? It's just not worth it.
But we would have said the same thing about New Japan at one point, that we never would have saw Chris Jericho in New Japan because he's a Vince guy.
but he doesn't wrestle in the continental United States. When he wrestles on his cruise, not in the continental United States.
So what if they do all the tapings in Canada?
Well, you got a different issue then. Point taken.
Point
taken.
No,
man, that's fair enough.
Again, I don't think it's going to happen, but I actually thought that was a really cool thing, and I would love to see it. I think it would fit his schedule. So I wouldn't be even if it was like a one shot or something, something really just real quick. But anywho, you brought up Ring of Honor, you brought up Sinclair Broadcasting, throwing money at people. So I wanted to ask you, it's not a huge note, and it should be, I guess, but apparently that there's been some interest from Ring of Honor about bringing CM Punk in for the April show we were just talking about, the New York City show. He says he's done with wrestling. That was what he said in his pre-fight interview. Note I said pre-fight interview.
Yeah.
I know him and AJ Lee are both in a movie. They're going to do a horror movie.
Yeah, it's going to be straight to Redbox at best.
But anyway, probably so. But
I'm going to cut. I'm going to cut on CM Punk right now, and
all right,
I know this is probably going to be unpopular, but there is no reason for a promotion to bring him in except for a one shot. You don't want him in your show long term. I think he's a cancer. I think he is a malcontent, and I really, really don't think he's good for a long term promotion. And that's because, don't bust on the guy too much. The guy does what he wants to do. He's not a team player. If you're going to build for something long term, you got to do it with somebody else besides him. He's a hot draw up front, but he won't draw in the long term.
Are you nuts?
I am telling you.
Have you lost your freaking mind? I have sat there, and I was very good, because you said you wanted to cut for a minute, so I sat here very quietly, and I thought, Myron has lost his damn mind.
I'm telling you, man, he's not good for the long term. He's a malcontent.
I don't buy that at all. I think if CM Punk, now, hear me out. He does have to decide if wrestling is what he wants to do going forward. If he decides it's what he wants to do and he's back in it for the long haul and he's in it because it ain't about the money. They've always said that he saved all his money, most of his money, so he's good there. Ring of Honor is probably not a bad thing because he's always had a pretty good relationship with them. He never left on a bad terms. Is he a long-term WWE guy? Probably not. I just don't know. I'm not saying they couldn't come back and work a short program, but somebody like Ring of Honor, I don't think he's a New Japan guy either because I don't think he wants to travel overseas. But to do something...
Well, he saw what happened to him in a real fight, too.
Yeah, but I'm saying, good thing is, guess what? Wrestling's not a real fight.
Well, New Japan's getting pretty damn close.
Yeah, but the Punk, I think would be first of all, it's a phenomenal draw because think about this. People went batshit crazy for all-in tickets just thinking CM Punk might be there. And people can say they didn't. They did. People thought Punk
there are people there. Yeah, I think that drew some of the WWE fans into the type thing. But that show is a good thing. I like it. I think it's going to be good for wrestling in general. And I don't really want to see it have to depend on CM Punk.
But putting that thing, like I said, at New York, that show, they're going to have to draw big because if they don't draw big in Madison Square Garden, it's going to be a square black eye right on their face.
Oh no, they'll draw big in New York. Trust me.
Okay, it's one thing to draw like in the Manhattan Center or whatever it's called. They're in the Madison Square Garden. They're in the Garden, man. They're going to.
What do the Garden hold?
It's like we're talking. Well, I don't know what it is for a wrestling show, but I know it'll hold 10,000, 12,000. We ain't talking about drawing in a 5,000, seat arena. We're talking about double to triple of what they normally draw. They need something like that, and that's what I'm saying. But my point to you was Punk is a draw, and he's a long-term man if he's happy where he's going, and that I believe to be true. And I don't think he's a short-term draw. I think he's a long-term draw. Think about it. His fans, now granted, don't get me wrong. I went off about the chance of CM Punk. I think it's the dumbest thing in the world because he did. He left you. He didn't want you. He left. He went somewhere else. That's a different argument. If he wants to be back, those fans will bail and go. They'll, you know what I'm saying? They can go over there and get their CM Punk, whether it's Ring of Honor or whatever. He's a draw.
I don't know.
He's a draw.
He's a short-term draw. I don't disagree. He's a short-term draw. I don't think he's good for what a promotion is going to do because he's going to want to do what he wants to do.
But he's the epitome of he went away and they missed him and they want him back. And he'll have a good long run when he comes back. I think
they miss him because he's gone. I don't think they miss him because of CM Punk. I think they miss him because he's gone. And I think wrestling fans typically tend to miss people who aren't there. And they tend to undervalue people who are there.
Can we
every day, like Roman Reigns?
Well, let me jump to somebody who is undervalued, and I'm gonna, we addressed this a little bit last week, and I got some positive feedback, I got some negative feedback. It is what it is. I mean, people wanted to agree to disagree with me or whatever on this, but there's one man I don't think you can question his passion anymore. It has come out that David Arquette wrestled RJ City at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood a couple weeks ago with 2 fractured ribs.
No, that's not even cool, man. That is not even cool. That's got to hurt so damn bad. Because I mean, I ripped the cartilage off my rib cage, and I managed to continue to go to work, but I was beat up. That was painful. I didn't break any ribs. You can't even breathe when you break ribs. And he went out and wrestled RJ City. He said RJ City comes back and says he's the toughest guy he's ever been in the ring with. That guy's got to have like a giant set of grapefruits.
I mean, yeah, because to I guess not get it out there, dude went to Tijuana, Mexico to wrestle to prepare for this match.
Who the hell wrestles in Tijuana?
Well,
that's got to be so rough.
AAA, but AAA. I mean, but I'm just saying. Like, who wants to go to AAA? Who wants to go to Mexico to wrestle to get ready for a show? I mean,
who could have got stabbed, killed?
That's Puerto Rico. Tijuana. That's the wrong place.
No, I'm not talking.
You're not talking about you're not talking about in the locker room. You're talking about on the street.
No, I'm talking about like in the crowd, man. That's Mexico. There are no rules down there. You're an American wrestler. The guy had to do something. I mean, he's got to be tough.
Yeah, well,
I'm sorry.
Kudos. But like I said, my big thing is I wanted to come back to all those people all week that kind of slam my thoughts and opinion on David Arquette's passion, his desire to do the right thing in wrestling, and it wasn't his desire. His desire to do, all the stuff he's blamed for back at WCW. But my thing is, man, if the dude's willing to go down to Mexico, willing to train, breaks 2 ribs, still gets into the ring, wrestles RJ City, because why? He doesn't want to disappoint the fans. On a match that was promised, it's entertainment. I'm going to end it there like we did last week.
That sounds like some kind of Mick Foley stuff, man. That's like ungodly toughness.
Yeah. Kudos to the guy, man. Hat tip to David Arquette, and hopefully, we'll see more of him down the road. That's all I'm going to say.
I hope so, because the guy sounds like he's got his shit together.
Well, speaking of somebody who's, we were hoping to see it all in, somebody we're hoping to see down the road, things didn't really work out the way it hoped. We had all hoped that Mr. Flip Gordon would go in. We had a shot at Nick Aldis. We were hoping with all of our hopes that he could take that NWA title off of Nick Aldis, put it around his waist, and maybe show up at All In, maybe to face one Cody Rhodes. But
I was hoping so.
The wheels just fell off of that. He didn't get the win. So now the question I've got for you, how does Flip get All In?
I really don't have a clue how he's going to do this. Because the thing about him is he's a talent, and he's a talent that you could really do good long-term booking around and get him on All In because he'll be good for the company. But, I mean, this is Cody's thing, and if Cody is doing this, he's going to make the decisions. Now, Nick, why would Cody work the gimmick, though, he's been doing with Flip, about Flip and Brandy and all that stuff?
Well,
if he's not had anything planned with him.
Well, Cody did after the fact. He has put Flip over on camera, social media and everything about that. He's got a whole new level of respect for Flip Gordon after that match. So maybe somehow, some way down the road, we get something. But maybe he gets Flip involved somehow. There'll be a match. I mean, there's been matches, made here and there along the way. I know they just announced that, like Paige is who he's gonna fight. So there's matches coming here and there all the way. So Flip, good luck. Hope you get all in. That's kind of our big thing. I think he's earned it at this point.
I hope so. I mean, the guy's a great talent. The guy is upcoming talent. He's an American serviceman. He's done in wrestling what most people can't do on top of being an American serviceman. He's somebody who's been impressive, somebody who has done what he needed to do to get where he wanted to go. I really think he deserves to go further and to be able to see him on a big stage like this.
Yeah. I mean, Lewis had Flip on a while. It's been a while, but you can go back in the archives and check that interview out. Definitely you want to check out Flip Gordon in the archive. So, now speaking of, young men getting an opportunity, there's a guy that we've seen up close and personal, met the guy, shook his hand, got an autograph, talked to him. That is one Matt Riddle.
Yeah, I can't say enough good things about him. I've seen him a couple times. I was there for the first round of SCI last year when he beat Tank, who in Georgia wrestling scene is a phenomenal name. He beat Tank. He got into the second round and went on to win the tournament. And then we saw him up close at NCW. The guy is amazing. Now, he likes the Chiba, the MJ, the Mary Jane, whatever you want to call it. But, a lot of people do. And I think a lot of WWE talent does. Honestly, for his career, he looks like he's New Japan. But, in Japan, they'll fry your ass for having some dope on you.
Well, here's the thing I wanted to ask you about, because that was the rumors that are flying around, is it's WWE or New Japan. And everybody's like, how's this even coming around? Well, apparently he's dropped out of shows that were booked over SummerSlam weekend. It's been announced that he's dropped out of the Battle of Los Angeles show, and it's in September 14th through 16th. Lots of things kind of, being changed around as far as his schedule goes. But I'm with you. The style fits New Japan, but if WWE, because, he's currently the Evolve champion, so obviously we all know how that works. Keith Lee was in that same, feel, and he's there now. I know lots of people are saying WWE's kind of relaxed their, policy.
I think Evolve is a feeder system mainly for WWE. They've got a definite association, and you don't really hear or see that much about it officially, but there's an association. There's money being switched back and forth, and it's a good promotion. I've seen it live, and they focus on preparing people mainly to work the WWE style. So that's a place. If you're in Evolve, there's a chance you're going to go up. Dude, the guy is phenomenal.
Well, his character's great. He's super athletic. My only knock, and it's not a knock, is I think he's an NXT star for sure. Yeah. Not sure if that translates to the WWE, his character.
It's not a question of his wrestling skill. It's a question of how they book him and how they make him on the television, or how they put him together,
Okay, well, first I'm going to ask you this, because I know it's not fair for this comparison, but when you get into a large scale, this is the comparison you're going to get. Rob Van Dam.
Yes,
as far as the promo.
Yeah.
Well, I just mean because from the promos, not really his strength. He's super athletic. The character's really cool. All those things are, can he cut the promo on the WWE? I don't know. I don't, maybe not. But here's my other thing. Am I the only one who just go, when they get into he got popped for, for marijuana, he got popped for weed. I'm like, I could care less.
Yeah, I am very, I am pro marijuana legalization. That's just my take on the whole thing. I don't have a problem with marijuana. I've been a pharmacist for 20 years. I think it's probably the best thing as far as curing a lot of this country's problems. But some things ban it. And, apparently right now there's a $2,500 fee for being, testing positive for pot in the WWE. Not a suspension, a $2,500 fee. And that is what they call the weed tax. They've got a tax on it, basically.
As long as you're not high in the ring, I don't care.
I would rather have wrestlers this is from years of experience in the pharmacy business and years of experience seeing people have problems with opiates. I think guys are a lot better off if they are in pain and smoke a J after a match and do better. They're back faster. There's not a lot of that whole I'm addicted to this, because people don't get addicted to marijuana. It's a harmless plant. It has a lot of positive things. I don't think it can cure cancer. I don't care how much Tommy Chong shoved up his butt. But I really don't think it's a bad drug. And it's just, it's overrated. It's as far as its potency. And I could go into a 45-minute speech on legalization. I'm not going to do that, because that's not what this podcast is for. I'm going to tell you, if I found out my favorite wrestler smoked dope versus my favorite wrestler took a handful of pain pills, I'd really be cooler with a guy that smoked the dope.
Right.
You know?
And now I get it. Like, if you're going to tell me, like, hey, he gets popped for a weed, like, we're probably not going to make him WWE champion, and he's going to get popped for possession here and there and all that kind of stuff. I get that. But to say, like, oh, well, we're going to suspend him and we're going to get rid of him, blah, blah, blah. Because, again, if you told me every night Matt Riddle wrestles his match, goes back to his hotel, smokes a joint, and goes to sleep, wakes up tomorrow and starts over, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But
especially after some of the shoot interviews I've been listening to lately.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's a whole different ball game. Back to our original point, obviously, Matt Riddle. I don't know that it's probably not the most popular opinion on the planet. I don't know that he's a good fit in WWE. NXT, thumbs up. NXT UK, if he wanted to go over there and wrestle, thumbs up. All that stuff. But I don't know that he translates to the WWE.
He's not. I don't see him as a WWE like TV style guy. That's just not the thing for people.
Right.
He's a guy that is free spirited. He does his own thing. He doesn't work the traditional style. He doesn't book the traditional style. So maybe not. Maybe it's just not. But the guy needs to be where you can see him wrestle, because I will guarantee you'll enjoy it.
It'd be a great match. Absolutely. So
whatever he does, you'll enjoy it.
So hopefully, like I said, we see him show up in NXT. Not so sure, like I said before, I don't know if he's the face of WWE, because for first and foremost, we all think it's Roman Reigns who's the future. But right now, the face of the WWE is one Mr. John Cena. And by the way, John Cena made an appearance at Comic-Con. The only reason you could see him was because he was dressed as Bumblebee. So you saw the Bumblebee.
No, he wasn't dressed as Bumblebee. He was in his costume for the film.
He's not Bumblebee in the film.
He wore the costume, Nick.
But
I demand a formal apology.
He's Agent Hurt. I looked it up. I think it's Agent Hurt is his name that he's playing.
That is just what they're saying for the press right now. He's Bumblebee. You saw him in costume. You know I'm right all this time.
He's too small to be a robot.
I did my research.
He's too small to be a robot.
He doesn't. John Cena's too small to be a robot.
He's too small to be a Bumblebee, a Transformer. Yes, unless he's one of the cassette ones that flopped out of out of Soundwave's chest.
I really think you're messing on this, man.
Okay, we'll put a wager on it.
I think Cena is probably the second greatest actor of our time after The Rock. Clint Eastwood, I think, is above our time. So after The Rock.
Okay, so Myron, you know why he's so pro legalization? He's probably just smoked one the way he's talking. So let's just go with that.
That's
move.
Me any day.
Yeah.
But I'm honestly telling you, I think Cena is a phenomenal actor. I mean, The Rock probably is the greatest actor of our time. But guys, seriously, he is in a science fiction movie where he's one of the toys from my childhood.
All right, we're going to move on because he's not a toy from your childhood. We'll agree to disagree. December 21st, by the way, that movie comes out. We'll go see it, and I'll prove that he's not a Transformer.
Okay.
But I did want to ask you, because we're going to segue into something else I wanted to ask you about. But before we do, Comic-Con obviously is a big thing. I'm a big comic collector. Everybody knows at this point, I hope. Was there anything, I listed like a couple things that like came out of Comic-Con that I was just really interested in, really loved. I love seeing them, and it caught my attention. Is there anything that jumped out at you that you saw that you were just like, I gotta, this made you want to see something?
I kind of had my eye on the matches I wanted to see already, and not matches, movies. and what I wanted to do, and the toys. I love all the spots where you get new toys, you know, where they have the Comic-Con exclusives and things like that. Anytime I can see that kind of stuff, I enjoy it. There's a lot of, you know, big reveals every year that make people excited. And I watch it just for the stuff that, you know, this is the thing I might want to go to, but I don't watch too many trailers because I think the trailers right now are so intense and so revealing that it can ruin the movie for you.
Well, that's what I took out of what I saw. Three trailers that I saw as far as movies go, hook, line, and sinker. I'm hoping everything that I saw in that Aquaman trailer, it's the next Wonder Woman. And that's a good thing, by the way, because Wonder Woman's right up there as one of the better.
Yeah, DC's got its struggles. If it takes a Wonder Woman and an Aquaman to fix it, more power to them. You know, go ahead.
I'm telling you, it's a beautiful looking movie, by the way. It just, I mean, the special effects and it was just awesome. Shazam, I'm timid. It looks like a little more some comedy and
that's
stuff.
That's a tough one. Shazam was a tough one.
It did look funny.
That's a tough story.
Yeah, no, but that trailer looked
your
funny.
Your mainline comic book.
Right.
But you knew Shazam existed and you might have read it, but Shazam was like something your grandfather read.
Captain, yeah.
What's the name of that publisher? I keep saying Chester's or Chesterfield or whatever. What's the name of the publisher that published that?
I can't remember, man.
They had to keep publishing it so Marvel couldn't steal the title Captain Marvel.
Right. But they of course ended up getting it, which is a whole other argument.
Yeah, and then they've got the Captain Marvel movie coming out.
Exactly. The Titans thing, by the way, the TV thing that's going to be on the streaming service, it's dark, it's going to be cool. That was really good.
Like a Suicide Squad style.
Dude, TV, looks like it might even be stronger than that. It looks very, take Arrow and shove it a little darker.
Arrow's dark enough as it is. Arrow is one of my favorites.
When I
talked to Leva Bates, I had this conversation. We love Arrow, but Legends of Tomorrow might be the best one because the writing is so good and the character development is so good, and it's not quite as dark. It brings a little bit of it's somewhere humor. Like a Marvel movie. Yeah, a little bit of humor in there.
Speaking of which, before I give my last one, that's what I wanted to get to eventually talk to you about. Is got the big Leva Bates interview coming out. It'll obviously be out by the time this airs.
Yes.
So check that out.
You know what? I talked to Leva at WrestleCade last year, and she's like, I was talking to her about ideas, and she's like, I'd always want to do a show that's not just a podcast that's not just about wrestling. Man, we didn't even really get to a lot of wrestling because we talked about cosplay and comic books and her Twitch channel, her appearance at the Raleigh SuperCon this weekend, the 27th, 28th, 29th. That was, it was good. It was a lot of fun. I've hung out with her, when she was in town for the, big women's show, but she's so cool and so awesome to talk to. You feel like you're talking to one of your best friends. I cannot recommend listening to this interview enough. I had so much fun doing it. It's something I'm very proud of.
And it's real easy to find, by the way. This show, obviously, and that show are going to release the exact same day. So if you go in there, you're going to find it. Don't worry about it. It's going to be easy to find.
But check what feed's it going to be on?
We're getting there, man. That was kind of, you're right. We're at the end of the rope here for anything else you got before I give that big news away? No.
No, man, I'm pretty chill on news. I wanted to congratulate David Manders on signing a long-term venue for Southern Fried at the Boys and Girls Club in Monroe. Still downtown Monroe, right there in the heart of their fan base. It's the drive that's worth it if you live outside Monroe. Some of the best wrestling in the South.
100% agree. And we'll see them there probably August 4th, right?
Yep. Well, no, they're still going to be at
Knoll on the 4th, but I didn't necessarily mean there, but we'll see the Southern Fried August 4th. Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
So now we'll go ahead and into the big news again. We teased it at the beginning of the show that it's, technically it's the last week of the Wrestling News Weekly, and that is because, this stuff's been in the works for a little while. We just kind of were holding off on how we were going to do this. But officially what's happening is next week, this show will return to the original flagship name. We will become the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast.
Yes.
Good old faithful, good old usual. That's what we were for the longest time. And that's what we're going to go back to, because, all of the shows in the next month, I will go ahead and tell you the feeds are already there, but every show will have its own feed going forward. If you want to subscribe to the Pro Wrestling Personified podcast, it's already on iTunes. I've looked it up already. We put those in. It's already there. The Gorilla Press, the same thing. They will have their own feeds going forward. So all 3 shows will have their separate feeds. Now, I will continue for the next month to put all of the shows on the main feed, to give everybody 1 month to make the transition. Now, because we did have some people who said, hey, I'd like to, subscribe to this show, and this show not, all the show, whatever, so be it. But with that, so we've done that. We've listened. Every show will have their own feed. They're going to have a lot of great things going on. You'll have the main podcast on that feed going forward. However, the reason that we also were making this move, we are going to start putting a lot of extra bonus shows, all the stuff that, what are the bonus shows? Where are the bonus shows? Everybody loves shows like when we do interviews. RJ City, the Makes Coffee in His Underwear episode, the Pro Wrestling Stop and Go. The Wrestling Dorks did a great, Gorilla Press where they did an exclusive on their Patreon we went over the kind of the Big Show's career. All of this stuff will be on our Patreon pages because we all have our separate Patreon pages. This show, which the Wrestling News Weekly Patreon page, by the way, will go away. I'm going to deactivate it because this will be the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast. I'll just change the name. It'll have its own Patreon page. The Pro Wrestling Personified will have its own Patreon page, and the Gorilla Press will have its own page as well. So basically going forward, we're all still going to be under one giant umbrella. We will all still be the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast Network, but everybody will have their own feeds, their Patreon pages. We want to get everybody exclusive, some exclusive stuff there. It's like I said, it's that one little step is all that's really going to change. Subscribe to all 3 on iTunes, Google Play, all those typical places you find us. Absolutely, you can check us out.
The cool thing is, though, no content is going away. Nothing is leaving. We're following a business model that MLW did a while back, where they split all their stuff into feeds where you can find exactly what you want to. It's like a buffet instead of a giant bowl full of food.
Right. It's just you got to be able to pick and choose what you want and all that good stuff. But the beauty of it is it's more of a refocus. We're going to focus, like I said, you'll still get the podcast. They'll all still be free here, whatever. And truth be told, lots of stuff is going to be on the Patreon pages for free. There's just going to be some stuff that we're like exclusive, like interviews early, and other things that are coming. We're going to start doing some video content on there. So check them all out. The Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast, obviously that Patreon page is ours. Then, of course, the Gorilla Press has one. Pro Wrestling Personified Podcast will have one. All that's there. It's just going to make it one big, conglomerate of stuff that we can give you, and maybe a way we can get it to you faster. Be honest with you. Patreon page, in some degrees, can get stuff to you faster. So, that all being said, if you've got any questions, comments, and anything, they just find us real simple at a couple places. Remember, Tapped Out Pod is always a one-stop shop to find us. Tapped Out Pod is our tag. It's on Facebook. It's on Twitter. It's on Snapchat. It's on Instagram, blah, blah, blah. And, of course, tappedoutpod@gmail.com is the fan email that you can send us any questions, comments as well. Tappedoutpod.com is the website. All that stuff will be on there at some point, so keep that in mind. And I'll definitely be tweeting out and putting on Facebook the links to all of the new feeds and all that good stuff there. Remember, you got a month. I'm going to feed them all for 1 month, and then within a month they'll completely be split and on their own feeds going forward.
Mm-hmm. And this is a lot. This is really a lot of evolution of what we're doing and trying to continue to bring you the best possible content as fast and as free as possible. Love this, guys. We all our listeners have been so good to us since we've been doing this. We go places and we meet people and they're like, oh man, I've listened to your show. And I still pop like the first time it happened. Like the first time somebody told me that, it still gets me. And that's all because of you, our listeners. Thank you. This is not just about our egos and going through and putting together a show because we like the sound of our own voice. We really do appreciate what you do for us. Thank you, fans.
Absolutely. And like I said, we hope the Patreon page is something that we can kind of go forward and start even showing that even more with call outs, shout outs, possible ways to get on the show, suggestions for the show, all that good stuff. So again, head on over to Patreon and check us all out. The Gorilla Press, the Pro Wrestling Personified Podcast, and the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast. Find us all. You can subscribe to one. You can subscribe to all. Totally up to you. Depends on what you're going to get from all of those. And they'll all be there on that page. So, with that big announcement, Myron, I got nothing else. You got anything else?
And really neither did I. So I think it's time we tapped out.